So let's go ahead and go into our next set of topics right now, too, as we look at right here. So you're joining me live right now here on Facebook Live, basically on the Metal Steel podcast right now, as we look at for right now. There's also some changes to the broadcast team. As we knew, Tunch Oken, he announced his retirement from his battle with ALS, what he was dealing with last season. And quite frankly, I really do believe that he was definitely having some issues before in the past. I mean, noticeably, you could tell something wrong was physically not right with him. I mean, he looked like he was getting a little bit more skinnier, I think, just a little bit. I mean, facially, just something looked a little off. But when we heard about it last year, especially for ESPN.com, Tunch Oken, who's announced his retirement from broadcast, but Wesley Euler, who I've had on like about a month ago on my show, has pretty much assured me that we'll be hearing him a little bit more soon, more than likely. I think we'll still hear him on the airwaves every now and then. Just not sure when that will be. But since he will be inducted into the Steelers Hall of Honor this year, Craig Wolfley, the guy who, if anyone has listened to Steelers games on the Steelers radio network, whether it's for TuneIn Radio or through NFL Game Pass, I believe if you get NFL Game Pass, you can hear the Steelers radio broadcast that way if you're not watching on TV. So Craig Wolfley, he will join Bill Hillgrove in the play-by-play booth. And remember, Bill Hillgrove, for the most part, this will be his 28th season being the play-by-play guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers as he replaced the late Jack Fleming back in end of 1993. So he came in there in 1994. And then also, too, Max Starks, former two-time Super Bowl champion and tackle for the Steelers. He'll be swapping with Craig Wolfley. He'll be on the sidelines, as will Missi Matthews will be. So once again, Bill Hillgrove, still a play-by-play guy, the new analyst during Steelers games on the Steelers radio network will be Craig Wolfley. And then, of course, former offensive tackle Max Starks, and, of course, Missi Matthews, of course, still doing the usual interviews. So congratulations to them right there. Can't wait to hear how that's going to turn out to be. I'll be honest with you, because you know what? I like to hear me a little bit more Charlie Batch. Because Charlie Batch, I felt like was another guy, too, who's really done a nice filling job. I hear him a lot of times and watch him on KDKA and CBS Pittsburgh. If you guys check him out on the YouTube channel alongside Bob Pompiani, usually doing the broadcast with him during the exhibition season. Now, I mean, when you really think about things, too, and put this into perspective, I mean, right now, I mean, how's that going to feel? It's just definitely going to be a new look year. We knew that. But I like the chemistry all around. I mean, anytime you have a guy like Craig Wolfley right there, I told him personally a long time ago when I called in on Inside the Locker Room when I was with Tunch and Wolf, I told him that you guys were like my version of NFL on Fox, where I felt Craig Wolfley was like the Tony Siragusa of that squad. I mean, just his personality being on the sidelines, the energy that he created. I mean, for a guy, I mean, just bringing energy to the game and to the fans. I mean, at the end of the day, when you hear him talk, I mean, he's the guy who still just talks, lives, breathes, and eats football for the most part. And you got to appreciate that more so as he continues to still be around. But like I said, I think as far as it goes right now, very pleased. Just still very saddened right now what Tunch Oken has to be dealing with at the end of the day. If anything, he's still one of the rocks of this organization, what he's did over the years. I mean, talk about outside his playing career, but just as a broadcast analyst with this team, I think, if anything, the most famous call by Tunch Oken was Ben Roethlisberger's most arguably one of his top 5 or 10 greatest plays of all time as a Steeler quarterback, where he made the game-saving tackle against the Indianapolis Colts, 2005, divisional round playoffs in Indianapolis in the RCA Dome versus the Colts, where the Steelers had to win all four on the road to win the one for the thumb right there. Jerome Bettis had the handoff right there. He was trying to, like, as he said in America's game, trying to get skinny. And when he did, the ball was popped out, fumbled the ball right there. Colts had recovered. Damn sure nearly ran in for a touchdown. And keep in mind, too, Joey Porter made a sack, I think, on Peyton Manning. I think it was 4th and goal at that point. And you would think right there at that moment that pretty much took the air what was left out of the Colts in that game. I mean, they had a commanding lead, I mean, in that contest versus the Colts when we look back at it in that playoff game as we looked at it versus the Colts right there. It was another game where it looked disappointing for Peyton Manning on his resume. But, I mean, in this game right here, I mean, when you really looked at what they were able to do, they had as much as an 18-point lead with over a minute, less than a minute and a half in the third quarter remaining. I mean, the Colts did come slowly, gradually coming back. I mean, pretty much, I mean, when you looked at that game right there, I mean, they're up 14-3 at the end of half. But then when you look at it too, I mean, the Colts outscored the Steelers in that second half 15-7. And it was a missed field goal by the Colts kicker in that game, which was Mike Vanderjagt, as he went in there. He was 1 for 2 in that game, as he only made a PA attempt. And then he missed the game-tying field goal, which was late in the game. I mean, shortly after the Jerome Bettis fumble there, he missed a 46-yard field goal. And then after missing it, took off his helmet, slammed it, threw it to the ground, got flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct. So when I remember Tony Shogun, I just remember him going like, oh my God, somebody better make a tackle. I feel like arguably, believe it or not, that was my favorite Tunch Ilkin call. I mean, of course, Steelers fans, Steeler Nation was on the edge of their seat when you watched a beautiful, dominating, and methodical game nearly slip through the hands that was clearly in control. I mean, of course, when you have a guy like Peyton Manning in there, you got Tony Dungy coaching, especially Peyton Manning. And the defense, I mean, that was really starting to really turn the corner, too, in the last, 2-3 years at that point. Listen, now that we're told it's over, that's why it's called a full 60-minute game. Pittsburgh Steelers did end up, winning that game. Thankfully, Jerome Bettis did say many a times that if it was not for that Ben Roethlisberger game-saving tackle, he would not be on the doorsteps of probably the Pro Football Hall of Fame or Super Bowl champion. I doubt about not being in the Hall of Fame, but it was definitely huge. It was needed for his career, as he was able to convince in the coming back, realizing that it was his hometown that was hosting the Super Bowl. Just a magical run right there, how they were able to survive their season. So let's get into some more stuff right here, too. Tomlin right now, heading into this game, before this game, he did say that we had every intention of taking our entire training camp prior to Canton. He also mentioned that certain veterans such as Cam Hayward or Joel Hayden did not participate. Won't go beyond that, but you could assume Ben Roethlisberger will not dress. Now, of course, we did see Roethlisberger on the sidelines tonight. He was wearing a headset, definitely looking calm, cool, and collected. He also did mention before this game that the Hall of Fame game is a good litmus test to see where some of their young guys were at in their development. Now, right now, we're expecting to hear the Mike Tomlin press conference right now. Here's some comments made by him as we looked at it. We should be hearing shortly, if not probably the next day, but I mean, we'll find out shortly. But yeah, like I said, I thought it was good for the defense for the most part tonight. Really proud of that. I mean, still looking good as advertised. I mean, run game looked pretty decent. Kalen Balaj had a nice game in here today. So he had 5 carries for 19 yards in this contest. He had a touchdown, averaging 3.8 yards, the most average of the whole running back crew. Like I said, Najee Harris had 7 carries for 22 yards, averaging 3.1 yards per carry. But I gotta believe he'll get more better as time goes on. He's been doing impressive in training camp with his attitude, his confidence, where he can not only be the bell cow, but also the guy that can catch passes out of the backfield for the most part. Chase Claypool, I mean, and when you look at the receivers too on this team right now, I mean, when we look at more particularly like Josh Dobbs right now, and particularly, he caught 2 receptions for 19 yards, targeted 2 times. I mean, obviously, that's not enough. But good news is for Deontay Johnson, did not drop any passes. We'll see how that continues when they open up their season in Buffalo versus the Bills. I gotta believe. Chase Claypool, I mean, dude, I mean, this guy right now, hopefully there still ain't no suspension or anything from his involvement with that brawl earlier in the year. But I mean, 3 catches for 62 yards, no touchdowns, caught a long of 45 yards, which led the entire Steelers receiving crew in here. As we also looked at here, we did not get a chance to see much of Pat Freiermuth or Zach Gentry at all, making any noticeable plays in this game. And that's about it. I mean, I think the receiving crew just has a little bit of work to do. To be honest with you, I think the only part that just, like I said, I mean, if not for the botch fumble, Steelers would have been +3 in turnover ratio. But again, this is the preseason. But I can tell you one thing, too, when we also look at this game, too, I mean, more so, you also talk about the edge rusher right here competition right now. I mean, when you look at it, and Alex Highsmith, Melvin Ingram right now, who's coming in here into this game. I mean, onto this team right now. Highsmith, I think watching this game tonight, very impressive with him. I mean, as Bob told me a week or 2 ago when I called in on his show that the coaches seem to be very impressed with how he's doing everything that he's being asked to do. I mean, and the work's paying off so far. I mean, granted, this is against the Cowboys right now, 6-10 team from a year ago. I mean, when we go into this game right now, I mean, and for the most part, too, I mean, for the Steelers versus the Cowboys in tonight's game, especially when we looked at it, Cowboys were not very good at protecting the quarterback, especially after losing Dak Prescott. They gave up 44 sacks, the 7th most in the league. But, I mean, I got to tell you, I was very impressed with the Steelers' O-line and the pass protection. I know we still got a little bit more time to see what's going on in the run blocking later on. I mean, we did mention other guys too. I mean, in here, I mean, on this offensive line right now, I mean, for tonight's game. And don't forget, too, I mean, also to mention, too, Kevin Green, he did get the start tonight at center. But, I mean, for the most part, too, I mean, the offensive line right now for tonight, I think they're pretty solid. Definitely will continue to like to see more how they continue to do here for this part as we go a little bit more in. That's about it. And also, too, let's get into some injury news, too, that was announced a day or two ago. As was reported by FL Network's Ian Rappaport, quarterback DeMarcus Acey, he is done for the season. He was an undrafted free agent out of Missouri who was signed in the offseason. And he verified on his Twitter account they tore his ACL during practice on Tuesday, the final workout for the Steelers ahead of their preseason opener. Both him and Anthony Coyle have been placed on the waived and injured list. Coyle, he has been a tackle who has taken snaps and started spent most of last season on the Steelers practice squad, and he was elevated to the game day roster for 3 games. He signed a futures contract with the Steelers in the offseason, but he has missed practices on 2 occasions because of injury. Coyle, he played at 4 of them and was on the roster with the Texans, Packers, and Falcons before joining the Steelers in 2020. So some unfortunate news for them right there. It sucks to hear news like that, especially when you're trying to get ready for a season like that. I mean, for the most part. But I got to tell you right now, I mean, I'm looking at it right now, and can this group manage to stay healthy right now? I think that's going to be one of the biggest biggest highlights going into this right now. Especially when you look at a guy like Kevin Dotson right now. I mean, another guy, too, a name that we've been hearing throughout this offseason, too, is Rico Bussey right now. I mean, right here. Rico Bussey, he is a receiver on this team right now. I mean, he was another guy right here who turned out to be a stand-up performer in the Steelers' training camp. He's been making routine plays, which were impressive enough for an undrafted free agent in his first camp. And as we look at it, too, the guy who written this article, too, was Shan White behind the steel curtain. He admitted that Bussey was nothing more than a camp buy in his mind, an afterthought, if you will. But right after the 2021 draft did wrap up, the Steelers had finished signing their undrafted guys. He mainly focused his attention to the undrafted guys at obvious positions of need for the Steelers. So we'll see that. I mean, Rico Bussey, he was a 2-star recruit when he began his college career at North Texas. At 6 foot, 190 pounds, he started to garner recognition after his breakout junior season for his explosive all-around game. Then he suffered a season-ending ACL injury 3 games into his senior season, and he redshirted. He transferred to Hawaii for his redshirt senior season, but he struggled to regain his pre-injury form and endured an underwhelming season. So, I mean, there you have it right there. I mean, more stuff, I mean, along the way, too. I mean, going into it right now. I mean, for the most part, I mean, following tonight's game here.